I was 22 years old when the world almost ended. October 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Everyone on land was worried. Everyone at sea was terrified. I served aboard the USS Hawthorne, an aircraft carrier stationed in the North Atlantic. My job was simple: monitor radar, track Soviet aircraft, and pray none of them crossed the line that would send us into nuclear war. But on my first night aboard, I learned something the public never did. There were rules on that ship, unspoken, unwritten, and absolutely deadly if broken. The first and most important rule was this: under no circumstance do we fire our nuclear payload, not at the Soviets, not at anything, even if ordered. The captain made us repeat it out loud. I didn't understand why, but by the end of that deployment, I understood far too well. My shift started at 0000. The carrier hummed beneath my feet. Steel, engines, and tension wound so tight it felt like the whole ship might snap. I was alone in the radar room, except for Lieutenant Parker, who had been serving since Korea. "Relax, kid," he said, sipping black coffee. "Nothing happens out here at night." That's when the blips appeared. 4 contacts, moving fast. Too fast. "Are those Soviet?" I asked. Parker stopped mid-sip. "No," he whispered. "Those aren't anything." The radar contacts weren't flying like planes. They weren't gliding like missiles. They were jittering, teleporting from point to point like our equipment couldn't keep up. Before I could say anything, Parker leaned in and switched off the logging system. I stared. "Sir, aren't we supposed to document?" He grabbed my wrist. "Log nothing. Report nothing." His voice had no humor in it, no room for argument. And then I noticed something else. Crewmen on the flight deck, just dark silhouettes through the window, were staring out into the ocean like something monstrous was rising from the deep. The captain walked into radar 2 minutes later. One glance at the screen, and he whispered, "Change course, now. No announcements." The more I watched him, the more I learned this truth. We weren't steering the ship. Something else was steering us. The next night, the captain gathered us below deck. He held a clipboard, but didn't read from it. "If you hear knocking on the hull between 0100 and 0300, you do not respond. You do not investigate. You tell no one you heard it." I laughed. I actually laughed until the chief engineer shot me a look that chilled my bones. And then it happened. A little after 200, when I was doing routine cable checks below deck, I heard it. Tap, 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 tap. Knocks on steel. Knocking from outside the hull, 5 stories below sea level. I froze. "Hello?" a voice called from deeper down the corridor. Seaman Delaney, new guy, same age as me. Before I could warn him, he rushed toward the sound. "Someone overboard?" he shouted. Then the knocking changed. It became rhythmic, purposeful, intelligent. Delaney stepped closer. "Hey, if you can hear us, knock 3 times." The corridor lights flickered, went out, came back. Delaney was gone. Just gone. Boot prints leading to the hull, none leading back. When I reported it, Parker just shook his head. "We'll adjust the roster," he said quietly. "Say he transferred. Transferred off a locked aircraft carrier in the middle of the Atlantic." That was the night I stopped questioning the rules. 2 days later, we were put on full alert. Radar picked up what looked like a Soviet bomber group heading straight for us. Tension filled every corridor. Men ran to stations, pilots strapped in, the missile bay activated. I watched as the nuclear payload system began powering up like a sleeping giant. Then, something massive appeared overhead. Not on radar, not on radio. In the sky. A shadow across the clouds, so big it eclipsed the moon. Silent, smooth, unnatural. My mouth went dry. "What the hell is that?" Parker whispered. The captain sprinted into the missile bay. "Shut it down!" he screamed. "Shut everything down!" "But sir, Soviet aircraft inbound!" "I said, do not fire!" Sirens blared. Instruments failed. Every screen went dead. Then the overhead shape drifted forward, slowly, like it was deciding whether or not to crush us. And in that instant, all Soviet signatures vanished. Every bomber, every radar echo, gone. We never fired a shot, but the message was clear. Something else was controlling this crisis, something that didn't want us launching. 3 nights later, whispers started spreading among junior officers. "We can't just sit here," one hissed. "We have nukes. If they attack, we fire." "Command says don't," another argued. "Screw command. We got a classified order. Direct line." A coded message began circulating through the lower decks. I heard the recording myself, and it sounded like our admiral. Almost. Almost. But there was something underneath his voice, like 2 people speaking at the same time. One human, one not. The mutineers broke into the missile control room. I radioed the captain immediately. He rushed down with armed Marines just as the mutineers accessed the override panel. One of them turned toward us, eyes wide, sweating. "We have to fire," he screamed. "It's telling us we have to. If we don't, they'll..." He froze mid-sentence, like something grabbed him inside his skull and squeezed. He collapsed. Blood trickled from his nose. The room went silent, and the captain spoke the truth. He looked at me like he knew I wouldn't sleep again after what he was about to say. He whispered, "Ships in wartime become thresholds, points of crossing." I didn't understand. Crossing to what? To them. He stared at the bulkhead as if he could see right through it. There is something ancient in the deep ocean, and in the sky above it. And it, whatever it is, feeds on conflict. It whispers, manipulates, imitates voices, pushes nations toward fire. My throat tightened. And our missiles? Anchors, seals. If we launch them, even once, we tear the seal open. And then, he swallowed hard, it comes through. On the 8th night, the water around the carrier turned red. Not like blood, worse, like the ocean itself was rusting. Sonar lit up with dozens, no hundreds of massive contacts rising from the deep. The mutineers, those still alive, panicked. "Fire the missiles!" one of them screamed. "For God's sake, fire them!" They rushed the launch controls again. The captain drew his sidearm. "Step away!" he shouted. They didn't. A fight broke out, screaming, gunfire, alarms. And me? I had a choice. Help them fire or help stop them. My shaking hands slammed the lockout lever down, sealing the missile bay. One of the mutineers lunged at me, but the captain tackled him first. The entire ship rocked violently. Something enormous brushed the hull. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the sea calmed. The sonar contacts vanished. The water faded back to black. By morning, the Cuban Missile Crisis was de-escalating. The radio announced that negotiations had succeeded. But everyone aboard the USS Hawthorne knew better. Something had intervened, and it wasn't on humanity's side. It just didn't want competition. We were ordered to forget everything. Reports shredded, names erased, bodies buried at sea with classified circumstances listed on records. Before I disembarked, the captain pulled me aside and handed me a small metal card. He said, "One rule. Remember it for the rest of your life." I looked down. The card bore just 6 words. "Always ask who is giving the order." He squeezed my shoulder, because sometimes it isn't us. Last week, for the first time in 60 years, I heard it again. That voice, the one from the mutiny attempt, coming through a scrambled broadcast on a military frequency. "Launch authorization confirmed. Fire at will." But no admiral talks like that. Not with 2 voices, one human, one imitating. And somewhere out in the Atlantic, a modern carrier strike group is listening. I don't know if they've been warned. I don't know if they know the rule. I only know this. If they fire, whatever we held back in 1962 will finally come through.